Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. We're ready.
Do we have anybody on?
Yes, we have. Meeting order at 7:01. Thank you. Keep it all rise and pleasure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Hill,
Here.
Treasurer Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Hopping,
Here.
Trustee Osling,
Here.
Clerk Squires is absent.
Very good. Thank you. There's agendas available over there. It's a really simple agenda tonight. We're to the point of public comments, and I think the best way to handle this is public comments on an agenda item. If you are on one of the committees, subcommittees, there's going to be plenty of time, Q&A, things like that for a back and forth. So if there's anybody in the audience or on Zoom that wants to have a comment about Health of Higgins Lake presentation and the rollout, we would take those at this time. There will be a post-comment section as well before we close the agenda or close the meeting for the night. So is there anybody that wants to make a general comment for the Health of Higgins Lake presentation rollout item? Okay. Yeah, sure. Could you come on up, flip that button on if you would. There's a button on there. Just push that button if you would and give us your name and.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm Dave Hobson, and I just wanted to thank you guys for the work that you've put into this so far. Jim in particular. I'm with Higgins Lake United. Obviously, we've had a lot of differences and opinions here. I think this is a good thing. I think we need to really harbor the experience and see what we can do to make this a better place overall. I think it's a great strategy, and I just wanted to give you kind of a hats off. Try to start this thing out on a good note, and I'm looking forward to working with some people with different opinions. And I think it's good to have different opinions. That's democracy 101. So let's be adults here. Let's get some, I guess, some good conversations going. I know this is not going to be a short process. It's going to be kind of a long, drawn out process. I'm looking forward to learning some things myself and meeting some new people. So, that's it.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I don't think I could have made it any better, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And is there, Mike, I can't see Zoom, so can somebody help me out? Is there anybody on Zoom that's dying to say something there? I can't hear it. Okay, very good. All right, then without further ado, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jim Osling, who is going to guide us through the presentation, the rollout. And then, like I said, the purpose of today is to have that free text as well. You got questions, let's get them answered up front as you go to the various committees and do some work.
Thanks, Brian. And I'd like to just welcome everybody here and, thanks for coming.
Is that mic on, Jim? Jim,
Yeah,
you're probably going to need that mic in
For
your
Zoom.
hand,
okay.
or you're going to have to sit right there and face the audience and.
Great. See how this,
There you
see how
go.
this goes. You bring up that.
Good, sorry.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. This is, we've been a while getting to this point, from at our end, and a lot of you have been notified as to what's going on. I'm sure a lot of it's going to be news to some of you, but, we're glad you're all here. And, like Brian said, we took public comment in the beginning, but, as we go through tonight, if you've got something to say, you're all committee members, and this meeting is for these committees, these subcommittees, the steering committee, and for the board to, get your input and everything. So, if you got questions as we go along, feel free to weigh in. So, when we're all done, those that are not necessarily a part of the committees will have another opportunity to, comment if you'd like. Once again, this is the kickoff meeting for posterity on these slide event here. So the agenda for tonight would include some introduction and just a little bit of overview and some history as to how we got to this point. I hope to take no more than about a half an hour or 40 minutes, and then we'll have it open for questions and go from there. We'll talk a little bit about what we feel the goals are and what we're doing, why we're here, why we want to do this. Like Mr. Hobson said, there's been a lot of animosity over the last, several years, and we hope this is a new start to be able to take a clear look at where we are, where we stand, what we can do, the things that we can accomplish, and we can do as a group. I'll show you the organizational structure that we've put together for right now. It's pretty solid, but I think it's open for for discussion. Now there may be some changes, or maybe some additional things we need to do, or some consolidations, and then some initial steps, and kind of kick these teams off. The steering committee will introduce those folks, and the subcommittees and the chairs on those subcommittees, so that we can get everybody to sort of know each other and see where the next steps will be. I'd like to just thank the board for their support. This started, like I said earlier, this started back 6 months ago, and the board, after we initially started talking about it, they're very much in favor of this notion of going ahead with this kind of a project, and they've been in full support of the work that we've been doing since then. So thanks to all the board for your support. And like I said, my name is Jim Osling. Maybe a little bit of background on me. I don't know if I got it in there anywhere else or not, but I'm a longtime resident here. I was born and raised, went to school in Roscommon. My family has been here since 1910, and so we've had uncles that have been clerks, and a couple of them that have been clerks, and the surveyor, and I've been on the board in the 20s, in the early 2000s, I mean. And on the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals, and then the planning commission again and again, and then back as a trustee again. I have a real interest in Gerrish Township. This is a great place to live, and it's important to me. I'm not really a lake person. I don't use the lake that much, but without the lake, we really don't have a lot to offer in Gerrish Township. If that lake were to go away, we're no different than a lot of townships and just in the backwoods of northern Michigan. So it's a resource that's very important to the people that live on it and that live close to it and use it, but it's also important to the people that live here. And we got a great school system that's supported by the notion that the lake is here. So it's something that we really need to take care of. Go back to the history. Go ahead. The history, no news to a lot of you people, but if you go back to the 70s, the first sewer was in the area was talked about. Came in this room and they talked about a sewer and it just kind of went away. Nobody had any interest in it. In those days, it would have been really easy, but nobody seemed to think it was important and necessary. So it went away. The 80s, the first studies to evaluate the condition of the lake were done. And in the 90s, there was concern over the health of the lake. So more studies were done. The 2000s, consideration for a point of sale septic ordinance was considered, and that went down in flames. 2010s, more studies. The consensus that the lake is changing. I think all these dates are probably arguable as to exactly when they all came about, but in general, this is the way that things have laid out over the last 50 years. The 2020s, there was the first real big effort toward doing something was the GLUA, the Gerrish Line Utility Authority, was formed to build a lake-wide sewer system, and that, as we know now, is in the past, and we're moving forward with whatever's next. Those 3 years of efforts to land on a solution met with resistance, no doubt, and it has gone by the wayside at this point. So in 2025, late 2024, actually, when I decided to run for township trustee, it had a lot to do with the fact that there was the problems with the septic system and the animosity that people had, and a lot of different opinions, and didn't seem like anything was really cohesing. And I thought that would have been one thing that I could spend some time on and see if we couldn't bring together some sort of a solution or some sort of a direction for it. So I started working on this Health of Higgins Lake initiative, for lack of a different term, and was intent on starting a comprehensive approach to the overall health of the lake. So that was in early last year. So in the winter and the spring this year, the township board voted to create the Health of Higgins Lake initiative in December, and we took a look at a high-level presentation outlining that vision and made a few changes to it and some adjustments, and then marched forward with a continued effort toward it. We prepared some position descriptions for what would be a steering committee to have an overreaching look at what all this effort was, what it was we were going to do, with a small committee, five-member committee that would sort of have an umbrella look over a bunch of subcommittees that we're going to turn the crank on several different things, which we're going to go through in just a couple minutes here. But that steering committee will have that overreaching look at what everybody's doing. We prepared those position descriptions, and we solicited applications in February and March, and you all saw those in some way, shape, or form, or most of you did, and filled out one, and that's why you're here tonight. And believe me, I really do appreciate the turnout. We've got, I think, 35 people that have raised their hand and said, put me in a committee someplace, and there'll be more. I expect people I've talked to said, yeah, I really like to get involved in the future, and some will move on and more will come in, but this is the beginning of what I hope is the infrastructure for the bones for a committee going forward for the next however long it takes to get to an improvement or a solution for the problems at the lake. Or identify what those problems are, and the severity of those problems. A lot of questions out there. We selected a steering, and with those applications came in, I went through the list of all the applications, read through them, kind of saw where people's interests were, and started to form some ideas on what those committees should look like based on the applications. The steering committee to formalize they will formalize a master and a strategic plan. We selected the subcommittees, and now we're to the point in June here where we've scheduled to try to get moving with each of these subcommittees and move on. GLUA is in the process of being disbanded. I just put that on more recently add that on there. The township board is the GLUA themselves voted to move on and disband the organization. That is pretty much based on, to start with, Lyon Township decided they wanted nothing to do with the sewer system going forward, and that pretty much left GLUA in limbo. GLUA decided that they were going to disband, and Gerrish Township took that information and got the ball rolling with the legal side of it to help that along, and that's in the process now. So we're not quite there yet. The attorneys, Gerrish's attorney and Lyon's attorney, have met, and they've come up with a plan, and we're implementing that plan now. So in the meantime, that's why we're here, is to take a look, step back. What do we want to do from here? How can we, get everybody's collective intellect together and move forward with this? Okay. This is a mission statement that started from pretty much from the beginning. I don't think it's changed much, and I read it every once in a while, quite often, and does it still make sense? But we're here to facilitate and guide a renewed collaborative effort of stakeholders with a common interest in securing the overall health of Higgins Lake for generations to come. It's pretty broad, pretty, but it's still, I think it points to, what we really want to do. It's open for Gerrish's goals, Gerrish Township's goals I put on here. I think each of the committees will end up with the goals. I would hope they would be able to sit back and come up with their own goals as to how their committees will move forward. But as far as Gerrish is concerned, we're trying to facilitate a platform for the citizens of the community to evaluate and recommend direction for the renewed and ongoing health of the lake. Same theme. Gerrish board's position is consistent with the Health of Higgins Lake's position. And additionally, Gerrish would provide oversight to a newly established Health of Higgins Lake Steering Committee, seeking to collaborate with its members for a mutual consensus on steps to take focused on protecting our most precious resource.
Give me something. What? Want some water?
Did you realize you can't see the screens
Thanks.
to keep you in the dark, trust the camera. Can you bring up that? So with the applications that came in and all of your input as to what your background is, what you'd like to do, what you would like to stay involved in, we came up with this matrix. It's just about there. This matrix, I'm not going to be able to read it. Doesn't look like, but I'll just tell you what's on it, and I can make some copies available. We'll dig it. This is going to have all the committee members over here. And their names and addresses and emails is be available obviously. But here's kind of the interesting part that the sort of gee whiz for me was to what, you know, what's the consistency? How is this committee made up? What's the overall cross section of these people? And you can just see that this is the HLPOA, the Higgins Lake Foundation, Higgins Lake United, Higgins Lake Lands Conservancy, or no affiliation. If I knew you were involved in one of these organizations, I put it out there. I probably have some of them wrong, but I think in general, you can see that. Now just a little bit more. There we go. You can see that there's a lot of diversity. There's people from all different pieces of all the different special interest groups out there. This next one is whether you're local or not local. Most of them are local, but we have people from that don't live here. They want to be involved. Gerrish Township residents, Lyon Township residents. We have, thankfully, we have a good group of people from Lyon Township that recognize the need that we need to do something regardless of where they happen to live, but they want to be involved here. Or some of them live outside of the area too. They don't live, there's a few. Probably the people supposed to live on the lake versus not on the lake, it's about half and half. And if these may not be totally correct, like I said, but whether they were folks that were pro sewer or anti sewer or neutral, and it's pretty even really. So the point is, take all those, the diversity and the overall spread of interest is is real good. I'm really encouraged by the fact that we've got this kind of diversity involved in the whole thing. And then over here will be the various committees. We started out earlier with about 12 committees, I think, and that was a little bit unwieldy, so I combined some of them together, and each of these colors are committee now. The steering committee. Steering committee is set here. And then the next one would be the science committee that combined with what we call the lake data. Sorry, a lake data and a new lake testing. Those all kind of run together, and so they all ended up in the same under the same direction. The next one is communications and documentation and the database, and that's one of the key things, and we'll get to that. I'll talk a little more about that in a minute, but that's one of the key things we want to be able to do is get our message out to people so they know what we're doing, and a consistent message that represents all the work of the various committees. Finance, writing grant applications would be the next committee, and then we had a couple that we knew we could get started on right away. Would be the other meetings earlier on. There's a notion that there's the road ends that dump into the lake have had some work done on them over the last. And they had a study done in 2000 or in 1990, and then another one in 2010, I think. And you can see the progress that they have made, but it's time to revisit that and to see if we do really indeed have a problem with road ends at this point and the runoff into these roads. So we have a committee set up to do that, as well as this last one is septic and well testing. This is just an extra one. Yeah. Septic and well testing. The township has already started, the Gerrish's Planning Commission has already started work or some interest in a septic ordinance. And we're going to continue on forward with that. And it'll interface with what we're doing here, but it's something that the board's taken on along with the Planning Commission. So, it's going to run kind of in parallel with what the rest of what we're doing. So, this might not be a bad idea. In fact, I wasn't really going to do this, but I think it would make sense if we, if we can get this kind of the. You're good now. This should give you, this is a high level, simple breakdown, I guess, if you will, of the committees as they've been set up. The, obviously the Gerrish Township Board needs to be, started this, and they're the ones that, that it all runs up to. This is a township function, if you will. And we created the Health of Higgins Lake Steering Committee. And the chairman of the chair of the health of the steering committee is Stan. I always call him Maduzak, but it's Majak. It's Manjuk. I'll get it sometime, I'm sure, but okay, good. So this is Stan. He's in his 5-member committee will be the overreaching, the overall taking a look at all the rest of the subcommittees that are out there and the work that they're doing. Those committees are the Science Committee, Brad Gibson's in the back there, the hand up, and he's got all the science of which this is by far the biggest committee. There's probably 15 or more people on that committee. You heard most of them here are the scientists that have an interest in what we're doing. There's going to be some very interesting meetings, no doubt, with that committee. Addition to the science piece of it and the direction that we take, I go into these in just another minute pretty quickly. Lake testing and the lake data, all the data that's been collected over the years is all in different locations and in different formats. And we're going to try to get that committee to take a look at all that and get it into one single repository. And that will be under the communications and documentation piece. Sue Gelderblum, where'd Sue go? There's right in the front row. Sue's going to head that up and make sure that Sue's going to take care of all of the communication that we have between the social media and all the documentation piece to make sure that all of the work that we do gets assembled in an order that we can review it, we can see it, people can get to it from outside, and we can use it as a resource instead of just having a ton of different pieces that are laying around out there. We're going to try to make some real sense of it. Database and mapping there, the health department is doing a lot of work right now. We have a group of people within this group that are working with the health department to update their records, which is going to be real key to the septic piece for one thing. So they're helping to make that all happen. Road Ends Committee, Tim O'Rourke, got years and years and years. There's right there with his hand up, years of experience as the director of the Road Commission, chairman of the Road Commission in Roscommon County. And he's going to see where we've been in the past, where we are, the most recent studies that were out there, and decide and work with their committee to see what's next, if we need to do more studies or if we can draw conclusions from what we've got. And I got the fertilizer piece under him for right now. I don't know if he knows that or not yet, but it might be a surprise to him this morning or this afternoon, but we'll see. Finance, we're going to have some money to make all this happen, and a way to take in money, to apply for grants. There will be, the township will, as they can, will fund some stuff if they can. But the finance side of it, as we pay the bills and collect the money, that's Ed Panyard sitting in the back row. He's going to take care of that. And the septic ordinance, like I said, the township board has got that ball rolling already. And so I suggest that I just keep on that for now and keep the interface with the planning commission and with the steering committee as to how that's coming along. Okay. If there's any questions on this as we're going along, feel free, just jump right in if you've got, before we get past it too far and you forget what they are. So. I kind of went through all these a little bit, but just to take it a little further, the steering committee, five-member committee with strategic thinkers, strong leadership qualities. As we were looking for people, this is the kind of thing we were looking for in this committee, that those have a sincere interest in a comprehensive solution. Experience in management and project management is helpful. Environmental science to be able to understand what the folks from the science committee are talking about. They'll oversee the week. They will oversee the work of all of the subcommittees and help to set the goals and strategy of the overall project moving forward. I hope you see as we go along that that's this group that's right here, headed by the steering committee, is the one that's really making the work. We'll take the reports and the progress and the concerns and whatever back up to the township board, but a lot of that work's going to be done right here with this group. The central group will consist of individuals that recognize the importance of creating a team and implementing a plan to evaluate the condition of the lake and eventually drive solutions that are directed at improving the long-term quality. I don't expect any concrete decisions anytime soon until we get some understanding of what the problems really are.
Treasure Island is going to be involved in this too?
Definitely. Steering committee will then report their progress back up to the township board. Obviously I'll be in close tie with them as we go along too, so. And of course, the subcommittees are where a lot of the real work is going to be done. They'll be out, and we're going to let you set the way you do the work as a group. You can decide how often you want to meet, who's going to do what the resources are. There's lots of resources, lots of different ideas as you get with your committees and figure out who's got the knowledge, who's got the background, whose background can we exploit the most to get to where we want to be. That'll happen, and then that committee chair will report back up to the steering committee. I kept the chairs I kept all from Gerrish Township. This is a Gerrish Township initiative for now, and while it's Gerrish Township has started it, it is a lake-wide initiative. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that it's pretty hard to address a chunk of the lake and not the rest of it. This is a lake-wide initiative. We as a board can't spend money on the ground, if you will, in Lyon Township, but we are going to keep track of where money comes from and where the projects and the programs that you all come up with, and if they make sense that they need to be something on land in Lyon Township and the funding can be, those are all things that we're not closing the door to anything at this point. So but keep in mind, this is for right now, the way this is set up is the Gerrish Township initiative. And I shamelessly want to exploit the talents, professionalism, experience, and resources of the community in each of these disciplines. We want the work that you've done over the years. You've been here you've got a lot of experiences, good ones, and we want to make the most of those in this next piece. Continue on with the science committee. They want to gather consensus of the data that should be considered with regard to the health of the lake. Once again, these are my words. I think the committee will come up with what the best thing is to do to drive the science committee forward. But are we checking for the right things? The contaminants, are we looking at just phosphorus or nitrates, or where do PFAS fit in? Where does pharmaceuticals fit in? Are they a part of the overall big picture? Those are the kind of things we want the science committee to take a look at. Identify all the sources they can that are contributing and affecting the overall health of the lake. Things other than the chemicals, things like the septics, invasive species. What about overuse? Do we have too many people on the lake? Does that cause problems for the lake if we have too many people? Road ends, lake levels, fishery. Fishery's not what it used to be, that's for sure. And how does that have an effect? Is the lake affecting that fishery, and what has that done to the overall quality of life of Higgins Lake. Evaluate the existing data that's out there. Like I said, we got stuff scattered everywhere. I would hope they can gather this together. I bet I got a file with, I'll bet it's got 100 reports and probably 80 reports in it. I'm sorry. They all say different things, and there's good information in all of them. So it's going to be up to the smart people to come up with what they say and what we can use out of those. If we need additional information, that'll be up to them to decide what that is and how we go about it. I put on there Higgins versus Houghton. It starts in Higgins Lake and goes to Houghton Lake, and what conclusions can we draw between the two of them? I noticed I saw the other day Houghton's phosphorus is much lower than Higgins is. So what does that mean? Let the scientists figure that out. Consolidate the data from over the years into one report or one database. We can, we'll have a, let's go ahead. We'll have a, the finance side of it, we're going to have a server available to we can, to get all this information into one spot so that we can, make it accessible to people. Come up in a second. New lake testing. If we need additional lake testing, that would fall under the science committee to make that call. And nearshore water quality versus deep water quality. Identify the scope of the problems. Identify the sources. Okay. I already talked about the lake data. This is the data that's scattered all over the place, and we'll try to get our arms around all of that. Identify any new data that's necessary. Consolidate the data from over the years into one report or database again. So, and then on to the communications committee. We want to evaluate all the methods of, and this is Sue Gelderblum, and to evaluate all of the methods of communications that we can with the public, so that we can get a consistent message that's well written, that's easy to understand, that's consistent in the intervals from every month or every 2 months or however often, and through whatever media this information gets out there to the public. That'll be run through this communications and outreach. They got a lot. Of our committees, prepare and manage the overall appearance of the project. When the science committee says, I want to do this report, I'd like to see them go to the communications committee and say, design the cover of this thing so it looks like the same kind of cover and the same kind of report that's being done by the finance committee or by, the science committee. I've called this a universal database from the beginning. That might not be the right term, but that is the collection of all the information that we have all into one spot and managed. Make sure the reports are available to the public. Identify the relevant data that we need to track. Do we want to try to collect email addresses for all of our citizens? If that's a huge project that I don't know if it can, but we should start it probably, or that's something to consider. Collaborating with the health department right now, and I don't want to spend a lot of time in this. I could, but the health department has got a great database that they're using that's going to become available to us called Fetch GIS, and we have people in this room that are working with the health department right now to bring that data online and up to something we can use. They're a ways away. We're probably 6 months from seeing much real, something we can use from that, or maybe not quite that long. So, but it's going to be an important part of our septic ordinance for one thing, and how we can sit back and evaluate what it's basically doing is taking a look at all of the records that are in the file cabinets at the health department, and they're being put onto a computer so that we can, query that computer and search the information quickly to find out, where there's septic tanks, where there's drain fields, where there's wells, where there's not any record of any septics, more importantly. And then we can use that to, to make some decisions on what our septic ordinance will look like. They'll be flexible. Like I said, everybody's got to be flexible so that we can, as time goes on, there will be better ideas than what I put on these slides to move forward with. So we need to be able to move in, different directions. Financing and information technology. We need to find, we have a mechanism to pay the bills, take in the money, to make sure that the donations and grants and the money that we'll have to deal with is properly managed. We are also, a big piece of this is with the treasurer, Jim Anderson at the here at Gerrish, will basically be the keeper of the cash, and we'll have an accounts right within Gerrish's budget that localize that money and can report on it every month, show you exactly what it is. And certainly that's the way we'll start. If time goes on and it needs to be something different than that, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for right now, we can take in money tomorrow and it's properly accounted for in a, safe to say, a 501c3 like, not safe to say that.
501c3 is a nonprofit under IRS, but because we're a subdivision under the federal government, we're automatically tax exempt. So we don't have to go obtain the 501c3 that most of you are familiar with a nonprofit. So we automatically can take money right now as a donation for the cause. It just have to be, if the donation has strings attached, we just have to be able to fulfill that obligation or not take that money if it's got something that's not palatable or within our statutory requirements.
I think what I'm trying to say is right now we have a method to get started with. And so if we don't have any money right now, so when we do get money, we're going to have a way to take care of it. So. And to focus on all grant activity, there's grants out there. They're harder to come by, I'm gathering, but we have some people that are very versed in grant writing. They've been successful at it. They've done a great job for us already. And there's more to do out there. And we're going to get them started right away, have them reside under the finance committee to do that work. So as the science committee says, we really have this project we really want to do, go to the grant people and say, can you find us something that we can write for that fills this need? So it makes the people out there that we've got available to us. We don't have to go looking for somebody new. The septic ordinance is just getting started, but we have one of the things that we've talked about with our approach to a septic ordinance will be an inspection-based ordinance versus, I guess I won't really get into that unless anybody would really like to talk about it, but this at a high level is that we're getting started on an ordinance soon. As soon as I get kind of past this piece of it, I'm going to start on the ordinance piece and start to put the verbiage together on that and how that's going to look, and then work with the planning commission to have them weigh in on it and get moving. So that's being done a little bit separate, a little bit separate from the rest of the work that's doing here. Inspectors are a part of all that effort, and we need those folks sooner rather than later because we're dealing with it at the township right now. We have to have some inspections done or some work done on our septics, and we'd like to get those inspections done by certified inspectors right now so that we don't end up having to cross that bridge later and have to redo them. So we'll get started on we'll probably take off from what Lyon has done and the people that were already identified in Lyon and make sure they're available to work for inspections here. So more news to come on that. Well testing. To be determined, but it's in order to, if we're going to deal with the health of Higgins Lake and the overall public health of the community of the entire township, we really need to take a look or consider whether we need to take a look at water well and domestic water well testing. And I personally think it should be tested through, this should be a township-wide effort, not just around the lake, but I live 3 miles off the lake and mine should be included in it, and my neighbors should be, so that we can have the best data we can that analyzes the condition of water in the entire township. Probably a little further down the line than the septic ordinance and some other things that are going on, but it's something we're considering. The next steps would be that the chair people would get with their folks from that roster that we had out there and start to schedule some meetings. And this room is available if you need to get with Michelle and see when it's available, if you want to schedule a meeting here. And that you can, let me back up. The steering committee and their meetings are subject to, just as the township board are, they are directly created by the township board. Therefore, their meetings are subject to the Open Meetings Act. We'll need to post your meetings when you get more than a quorum, more than 3 people of your committee together. Those meetings need to be posted, and just like the township board meetings are. The subcommittee meetings, we've been told, our legal counsel has told us that they are not subject to the Open Meetings Act. So you can do your work and then you report back up your findings back up to the steering committee, and you can do your work without being having to comply with the Open Meetings Act. We want to make sure you stay transparent and you take minutes and notes and show progress, and we'll make those available to people. But as far as Zooming and publishing your meetings, that's not going to be required. Strategies, where you're going, how do you fit in with the rest of the groups? What is it that you want to accomplish? Where are we going to go? Where do we want to be in 6 months? Where would you want to be in 2 years? Those are all the kind of conversations I'd like to see you have, so that we can keep moving forward. I think you'll continue to get, for a while, you'll continue to get some direction, if you will, from the board through me to all of you. But I'm going to try to keep out of it, only I'm sure you'll be sick and tired of seeing me, no doubt. But nevertheless, I don't really want to be real involved in the decisions that you make, as long as you're moving forward and you're making some progress. So this is a community organization. It's not something that the township board is trying to dictate and jam down somebody's throat. This is a group now organized that you can hopefully make some good progress with on your own. It's come up a couple of times, and this is not a solution looking for a problem. There's no preconceived, in my mind, there's no preconceived notion about where we want to end up with this. We need to step back, see what the problems are, identify the work that needs to be done, put a plan together for that work, and then from there, at some point, we'll be able to draw some conclusions about some definitive conclusions about what's going on with the lake, what the problems are, and then start talking about solutions to those problems. But we don't have any solutions in the next little while, that's for sure. We have to find out what the issues are first. We're not promoting a new or different approach to a sewer system. That's come up. I've had questions about that, and people have said, yeah, that you're just looking for a way to remarket the sewer system. And that's exactly what we're not trying to do. We're looking for where we stand right now and what the problems are with the lake and how we can move forward with them. We're seeking universal agreement on the overall health of the lake. And to the extent that we can get to that, I think we're making some real progress. Solutions and remedies to be discussed at a later date. Incremental improvements are a benefit. Road ends will come up and by the fall, let's say, it's probably way too aggressive, but by the fall, they've addressed, 4 or 5 of these road ends and they've had an actual plan and done some construction. That's an incremental improvement that we've got. An incremental improvement would be developing the Fetch GIS system and getting that data in there. And now we've got something we can really work with. We're going to see those incremental improvements as we go, and they're eventually going to contribute to the overall benefit of the project. So I think we're getting to the end. I think everybody's probably saying, please, to do nothing is not an option. And most much everything I ever talk about here is we can't just sit back and do nothing. We got to do something. And this tonight is evidence that something really can be done. The talent is second to none. And I think it's a great start. And I thank you all for throwing your hat in the ring and being a part of it. And now I'd open it up to any questions you had. Or I have one more thing when we're about the time we're done, but are there any other questions that anybody's got?
I'm curious about the committee structure. Does the steering committee have seats for each committee to sit at it, or it seems like it's a communication barrier? If we have to report to the steering committee member, why can't we have a body on the steering committee represent what we're doing?
Yeah, that's a thought, Shirley. We started out with, I wanted a 5-member committee that was talked about earlier on, 5-member committee that represented, that was picked because they represent, this diverse community, rather than have and then from there, the committee chairs were picked based on the people that were in each of those groups. I don't want that steering committee. I don't think we want that steering committee to be 5 people plus another 6. I think that gets to be unwieldy. I think that any one of those, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but I think any one of those committee members can pick up the phone and talk to Stan and say, I need to sit down at your meeting and bring you the thoughts of our committee and sit down with them and deal on it one at a time, as opposed to having all those committee members there at their meeting. So that, I think, was the methodology behind it, Mike. But
We're going to be pretty different. Certainly after this weekend is over, communicate with all the community
chairs. Mm-hmm.
Maybe get together somehow, but
Yeah. Yeah, there's, I think it's a bit to be determined how it works the smoothest, but for right now, I think it has the representation in the right spots for what we'd like to see have go forward. Yes, sir.
look behind, they get the same result by different way of doing it. Maybe your steering committee members give out a different committee, therefore there's no getting in person.
Yeah, that's a thought. Yeah. Liaison to each of the committees. That might be something to consider. Yeah, sure. Yes, sir.
Committee of boundaries. What happens if there's a conflict?
I got an example for me.
No.
Oh, well, the septic.
Septic ordinance of the township, but it's imperative that we have some kind of septic line, whatever it comes out. Okay, the lake.
So the Health of Higgins committee says we definitely need a septic ordinance. We got to have that. Township board goes, we're not going to do that. Residents? Well, yeah.
Okay, so what happens, like I said, what happens if there's a conflict?
Yeah. Well, we have conflicts every day, and so we will have to manage that as it comes through, but in that example, if this group says we are doing this septic ordinance and we put that together, we have to go through the process. We have the planning commission and public hearings, and we need to, make sure everybody understands what that is. And if the general public pushes back hard enough on it that that can't happen, that's probably where the buck would stop, would be at the township board. Yeah, we'd have to, regroup. So. Mike.
The finance committee is gonna have thoughts about what the septic system entails. I would be more than happy to not take the heat for the septic ordinance. But on the other hand, finance committee should have something to weigh in on about what the septic system does in terms of nutrients and chemicals, that sort of thing. Fertilizer is another one that it's a whole nother committee, but really, the science committee is talking about pH of the water and their phosphorus and, all those things interact with those other topics.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's something we need to address. I think, well, for example, it looks like I can't read I think Pat Howe has raised his hand to be on the road ends piece of it, and he's on the steering committee, and he's also on road ends. Maybe John Ogren, were you going to be? I think there's enough overlap here where people are on more than one committee and they can fill that role. And if not, if the science committee doesn't have enough representation in some of these other committees, Brad, we probably should find somebody that can go and, sit in on those as well. So they keep that liaison again between them. So that's a good point. There was one over here. Yeah. I did. Yeah. You got an old one? Yeah. Should have brought that up. Yeah. That would just happen just most recently, was to move it over. So. And I will send out to all of the committee members a new roster and a new set of slides with some very, very minor changes tomorrow, so that you all get it, and you can throw everything away before that, because, like I said, it goes through kind of a iteration of, things come up. I get a phone call. What about this? And so something gets changed, and so now you'll see the final one coming out of tonight. Lynn's taking some notes here too, and when I get her notes incorporated in here, I'll fix those in. Pat? No. They have had some to say about it, and it hasn't been particularly receptive. I mean, it hasn't been good. So, and can't quite figure out why, but nevertheless, we decided a while back that it didn't look like we were going to come to real compatible terms going forward as a group. So we parted ways, frankly, and we're going to drive this from our end, where we don't have to run it by committee at the very highest end. We've got this committee right here, that the board that can make sure it gets in the right direction, and we'll do everything we can to deal with the health of the lake, the entire lake. And every time we have an opportunity to do something in Lyon Township that can be funded appropriately, we'll deal with it. But as far as representation from Lyon Township on what we're doing here, it just wasn't gonna happen up to this point anyway. So just a second, Phil, right here. Go ahead, Phil. Gerrish. Come right from Gerrish. All of everything we're doing right now, there is no other legal binding authority whatsoever. No Yeah, no authority. This is run right through Gerrish Township. This is a Gerrish Township initiative. It's funded, like Jim was saying, we've got a place to deal with the funding. We can accept grant money if you, I assume you're talking about grant money, right? Yeah, it can go right here, so. Dave?
Us all meeting together.
Mhm.
What are your township things to and all of us get together in this process? If we- what's going on, what do we- I mean,
Yeah.
in addition to some-
Yeah, no, I think this is a good meeting. This is a good group to get together and we'll get more public involvement as well, I'm sure. And we'll schedule another meeting whenever it's appropriate. I'd take the lead probably from the steering committee, say it's time we got together and had another meeting. Maybe that's in 2 months, something like that.
Child,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Marty? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, as we were going through, I was
Jim, can you summate that? We couldn't hear it up here. What was your?
as we went through the room and people were, talking about their backgrounds or whatever, there's people that are not assigned to a committee. They're here just as a as an interest, but they may have more than a passing interest is what I was just going to say. So she's wondering and I think that anybody that wants to get involved in this project, you're welcome. We'll get you in. We'll find you. You tell us where you want to be, where you want to be involved and what committees you want to be involved on. You can email me. I'll write it down right now if you want, but after the meeting. And we'll see to it that if you have an interest in getting involved, we'll get you in there. So, yes. This meeting will be. Yeah. Yep. We're a ways from having that ready to do just yet. The guy that's thinking about it sitting in the back of the room there. And when he gets with our people and figures out how that looks and gets with Brian and we get that done, we're going to have a spot that'll be somewhat separate from the Gerrish, from the Gerrish website, but still accessible so that you can see the progress.
Our IT. We're in the process of doing a new server here at the township. I'm sure there's some OneDrive options where there's only one, a location there also, so we can get it together and get with, was it Ed back there? We'll get our IT together so that it has the proper repository of where it needs to be.
Yes, sir.
all the, like, fully help the party.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bigger you make it, before the regional you make it.
Yeah.
The point, the more partners you get on funding.
Yep. Yep.
As opposed to you make state or county funding, but watershed, that's how we take.
Yeah.
That description, but Higgins Lake and the watershed headwaters.
Yeah. And I hope that's, I've heard that from other people say the exact same thing, and I agree. And hopefully that is, an output of what, the steering committee and the science committee, say, yep, we need to keep in mind that this is more than just the surface of Higgins Lake for sure. So. Yes, sir. Well, I think we're kind of in, we've kind of migrated to the comments section, I think. So, yeah, go ahead.
I apologize for
Hey, no apology necessary.
been here
decades and decades, and there is a degradation of water, despite what my township officials claim. And kind of the challenge that I put forward is this lake in the quoting Supreme Court of Michigan in Jacobs matter is the most litigated lake in the state. That's called out of the city.
Mhm.
And Jacobs. It's amazing to me that you can probably learn some lessons. But we talked about the hundreds of thousands of dollars we spent on Jacobs, whether we're talking about 1970, my father was on the sewer district committee,
Mhm.
spent hundreds of dollars on that. Somehow the citizens of the right community could spend a couple $100 to create a sewer system.
Yeah.
Household, but there's lessons to be learned. Recently, we had the most recent full misinformation perhaps, these are 5 bars of the system down the drain, but I think that maybe the steering committee or the communications committee has to look at what lessons can be learned from those particular endeavors. How successful were they? What? Why weren't they perhaps successful? And how can we insulate ourselves from repeating those same mistakes?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm really encouraged by what I see, tremendously encouraged. Well, we know what's coming right around the corner. Particularly in this day and age, we need information. I do it. Why not avoid it? Yeah. I think we have to have a strategy.
Yep.
Because if we don't have a strategy, we don't have that firewall.
Well, I may have said early on, or maybe not, but we're hopefully this is the beginning of the bones of a long-term, firm organization within the township that can deal with these questions when they come up, deal with those kind of questions. You know, how are we going to make sure this thing does move in the right direction and doesn't get derailed by misinformation and through the communications committee to make sure that everybody in the township understands where we're going and what the answers are. I don't know what exactly the answers are yet, but I think that I'm looking at people that will come up with those answers, and I think that's a good point, though, that there's a lot of opportunities that we missed over the years. In the 70s, when we could have brought a sewer system in here and been done with it for nothing, next to nothing, but you know that was a missed opportunity. So, anything else? Just one more thing, just 1 second, Jim. Yeah, go ahead, John. Yep.
Very positive. And we keep in mind that that's a wonderful resource of information we have in the community. Go ahead and experience the crap that they ran into and opportunities maybe that they don't see this or again with you.
Yep, absolutely. Ed?
So, seems to me that one of the biggest things that we need to do is ensure whatever we do, it's science-based. And as long as we stay science-based, we can keep this information.
Yep.
I think we're, again, you can't always, but if you don't make it science-based, we'll not be a 5-5, we'll be back to something. Science-based is great, and I agree with it, but that will not prevent people from saying the exact opposite. Hey, a lot of voice, unless you have a strategy.
Yeah.
What's going on? Well, I won't get into that. That's last.
Yeah, we don't, facts can sometimes get in the way of public opinion and, and so we need to deal with it. Don?
Nothing written, so that board.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be important in our community. And it's gonna be important in how transparent we are. Well, things that we're doing.
Yep.
That we are making, we are not making, we are making recommendations.
And as I said, when we kicked this off, was the board is 100% in favor of this, what's happening here. So you've got all their support. It needs to be, whether it can be politically transmitted to the rest of the community, that's going to be the tough part. And, but we'll deal with that as it comes along. John?
The question is, you probably don't have the answer to this, but, the central repository database, all the different committees already have information that needs to go into that. And do you see someone on the committee, which individual committee, inputting their own information, we're gonna be seeing somebody of these communications, that decision been made? Do you have any idea how, because I mean, we're all going to be gathering that and from a project, perspective, it's difficult because keep being one person who does all of that, so you see, and if you haven't made that decision yet, I understand, but it's almost like we need secretaries for each committee and then something to get the database and
Yeah.
update it on stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't have an answer to that. I would hope, it'd be my hope that somebody, an individual from each of those committees would have right access to the computer, that's set up for this. And yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, we're not.
And it has to be where not one person is going to be. I don't know if it's gonna be the committee chairs, but somehow they will set up meeting events so that multiple people in that place and not someone next to them. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Ethan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just a general comment, I'll be working primarily with the science committee, as indicated with the old fashioned problem solving. But in the end, as I continue to emphasize with all the board members, this is all about democracy. Our role is to say, this is our best opinion that we come up with. But in the end, democracy is not about that I'm right and you're wrong. It's about that everybody put forward their opinion, and then we had a vote, and then we moved on. And what I find most poisonous thing that goes on is that everybody says we love democracy, except when other people don't agree. And I ask everyone that in mind. Everybody thinks democracy is great until you don't agree with my great idea.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be dealing with in the end.
Yeah. Well, I didn't pretend to say it was easy, so. Anybody else? Yeah, I know Jim had something.
I just, first of all, I'm not a scientist. I'm not even going to profess that the best thing I've got is an opinion, which really doesn't carry any weight. And I think that, when I got elected, I got accused of being pro this or against that. And I was running for this office really because they needed my expertise in finance, not anything else. But I think when you talked about, if the example of the septic ordinance being needed and your science committee heavily believes that needs to be done. And I happen to be the liaison for the planning commission, so I'm sitting on that. But if if it was a consensus through the steering committee that something needed to be done and it's something that has to be acted on as part by the township board because it's going to create some sort of ordinance or regulation. And obviously that, there's always people that don't, there's always going to be a factor or a group of people that are going to be against that because it's going to cost them money and they may not have the same viewpoints of the importance of the lake or just generally don't want to spend their money. And so you're gonna have to deal with that. But I think when it comes to the information that comes out of these committees and it flows up into the steering committee and then on to our board, it's going to be important that the voice is a consistent voice once it gets to that point. And I think that, the communication going back out to the public from our township and from the communication committee is going to be, it's super important that that message is always consistent, that we're always on the, we're going to disagree. Obviously, you mentioned that, but when you within your own committee, you may have, if I lined up, 10 engineers, I got a feeling I'm not going to get 10 consistent answers as to a question of what the issues with the lake are. But once that consensus is made, you need to fall into line with your group. Okay. You can have a difference of opinion, but when that consensus comes out, you can't come back with a dissenting, well, it's 9-1 when you put that out to the public because you just created a problem in itself. But I think it's, we are going to fail if we don't put a good effort into educating the people that are going to have the influence on the board through a vote or whatever. This issue with this last effort with the sewer, divided the community, and there's a lot of people that have hard feelings both ways on that. And I can't tell you for a fact if we had to have a sewer or not, but I think that as we start to regroup and go forward, is going to be so imperative that when we come out with whatever reports we're doing, that it's at least a majority effort of this is a consistent message, is because as a planning commission person, I'm going to be tasked by this board to say, you need to put a septic ordinance together. So we're right now working on that. So we're tasked to do that. So I sit on that committee. I'm going to put my best effort based on the information that are given to us. And then the plan commission turns it over to the board, and then the board votes on that ordinance. Hopefully, if some of this stuff is coming from the steering committee or the subcommittees through them, they're going to give us some of that ammunition that we don't need and the information to put in these ordinances. But it's got to be, don't want to have the pitchforks and the people showing up. We need to educate them to the best of our abilities to make sure that they have at least a good, solid information as to why we're doing what we're doing. They may disagree with some of it, and maybe they don't want to spend the money for the septic inspection or whatever. But if they're at least educated consistently from us, so that it's, there's always going to be the naysayers and the Facebook, crackpots, but you can't help that, but if you have a good, consistent message coming from, I respect everybody in here. You guys are, this is one heck of a group of good background. If you all said to me at least 90% that you needed to do something, I would probably believe that. So we just need to get that message out to the general public so that they, because there was just a lot of mixed messages this last summer that I think was the demise of whatever efforts were being made. And I just think that this is the opportunity to start fresh and get that message out there, whatever it ends up being. But I think having good educated people on these committees, I don't know how to read a report unless it's financial. You've asked me to talk about nitrates or whatever in the lake. I really don't understand all that stuff, but I trust that a lot of you do. So that's my message anyways.
Hello, are we still in public comments?
Yes, we are. I don't see any
Awesome.
hands up now in the audience.
Right.
We just finished that, and then Treasurer Anderson just spoke. Do you have a comment? State your
I
name.
do.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm Lori Andrews. I'm Gerrish Township property owner. I'm curious as to why you guys are looking into pharma and PFAS. To my knowledge, there's really not much that can be done, even if you find pharma or PFAS. Sewer systems, all the sewer systems in Michigan, they don't filter out pharma or PFAS. I'm only aware of one sewer system that does filter out PFAS, and that is because they sued Dow Company because they dumped all that stuff in their water, and they used that money to build a super duper high tech, unbelievably high tech sewer system for one community. I'm sorry, I can't think of the community at the moment, but I can look that up for you if you're interested. My point is that even, you know, you're going to spend the resources to investigate whether or not there's pharma and PFAS in the lake. And I'm guessing you will find pharma and PFAS in the lake. And then what then do you do with that information? I mean, what is your actionable thing that you can do with that? Because a sewer isn't going to filter it out. A septic system isn't going to filter it out. So I'm not, I mean, other than, you know, general curiosity as to whether or not it's in there, I can tell you right now it's in there. So like, what's the point? And that's my only other comment is I'm sorry if this was already addressed. It's hard for the people on Zoom to hear the comments from the committee members because nobody's using a microphone. And so I just thought I would point that out. If this has already been covered and I missed it, I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting. Okay, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the comment. I'm not going to spend a lot of time addressing people. Not that I'm to be the person to do it anyway, but nevertheless, that's one of the things that the only reason I said that was because what are the items that are going on at the lake that we need to be concerned with? That's what the science committee's got to look at. PFAS and pharmaceuticals, if they're an issue and they're a public health issue, I think we should find out about that. But if it turns out there's nothing we can do about it, and that's the decision of the science committee, then we'll publish that. So is there anything else? Anybody have anything else they wanted to say? I only want to finish with, if you are here and haven't been assigned because you're not, you know, officially on that roster and you want to get involved, either email me at trustee1@gerrishtownship.org or see me after the meeting and I'll get your name and make sure we find a home for you. So, and if not, I will only say that there's the chairs, you know, you can see what committee you're on, search out your chairperson. I expect he or she will be emailing or getting in touch with you to take whatever that next step is. But thank you all for coming. It's a good meeting.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. If we have to go through the formality, yeah, we do have to go. Yeah, we got to go to the formality here of moving on to any other board. Do you have any announcements or anything you'd like to make? Is there any other board members that would like to make a comment at all about the evening meeting or anything like that?
Just that's awesome, the response that Jim's gotten, and thank you all. That's all I've got.
Yep, I echo that as well, folks. You know, when we started talking about, you know, we didn't want to let the lake health die with, you know, with the authority issue that happened. And so Jim graciously stepped up. We're ever so grateful for him and his thoughts and his processes. And I know I had conversations with several people in the audience and said, geez, how did we get here? This is usually a very cohesive, wonderful community, and it got off the rails. And the whole goal here is to make this thing a community-driven piece. And you've all asked about what happens if the township board something. Well, you know, political courage, that's what's going to have to happen here. And I, with this particular board, I feel a lot of political courage, meaning that we know we have to do something, and we're not sending people out to do nothing. And so I just thank everybody. I'd have never dreamed that we'd get this many people across the cross sections of the divisions that we even had in the community. So for me, thank you on behalf of the board for working on this stuff. Will there be issues that come up? Absolutely, but we all have to agree to be adults. We talk about them. There's solutions. We don't have to, at the end of the day, I've always said, we have disagreements. Doesn't mean we have to hate each other for the future. We just have to respect each other's positions and move on. And when you're a board member, I can tell you that, and these board members have heard it from me before, pick the hill you'd like to die on. That's fine, but you can't die on every hill. And I say that to the committees and subcommittees because there is a very big difference. So with that, I'm off my podium. I would entertain a motion to adjourn meeting. Moved by Treasurer Anderson. Do I have support?
I'll support that.
Support by Trustee Appy. Any further discussion, board? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. The meeting is adjourned, Lynn, at 20:50 or 8:54, excuse me. Thank you all.